that Atlanta Falcons radio show. So get up, get out, and get something. Get in the zone. We live in the DT. Tune in, cause we about to blow like TNT. Falcons Central Radio show. Gonna be berserk, you heard. We ain't even tripping, catching y'all slipping. What's good, man? On the Pro Football Central Radio Network, hosted by Aaron Freeman and Scott Carasik. What? This right here is a good present for you. Enjoy my presence like I was Santa Claus, man. Chillin', doing it.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Falcons Central Radio on ProFootballCentral.com. I am Aaron Freeman, joined by my good friend Scott Carasik. We are here to talk about the Falcons as usual. This week is the all-important third preseason game where all the people that put way too much stock in the preseason go crazy when their teams win or lose and make a mountain out of a molehill. The Falcons will be taking on the Tennessee Titans this week. Should be a fun matchup to see how Falcons, a team that has Super Bowl aspirations, match up with a team like the Titans that are more inclined to have playoff aspirations. We'll get to see Tony Gonzalez suit up in a Falcons uniform in a preseason game for the first time this summer. We won't get to see Roddy White or Stephen Nicholas. But it's, seeing Tony back in uniform, good old number 88, will make that all worthwhile.
You know what? I'm excited to see Tony back. It'll be good to see if he's still got it, which I don't think he ever has.
Okay.
But I think with Nicholas injured, you're going to see Paul Warlow get some snaps with that first team defense.
It'll be interesting to see, because from what I've been hearing is Bartu's been getting most of that work. But it'll be interesting to see how the Falcons divvy up Nicholas's snaps. Maybe some of them go to Warlow, Bartu, maybe Corey Bierman. We'll see how that goes.
I'm excited to see.
Yeah, speaking of linebackers playing, we will also get to see Sean Witherspoon for the first time this preseason as well.
That's another one where it's like, finally. He's one of my favorite players, and I want to see him play. I want to see him fly around like a banshee, like he is, and just hit people.
Exactly. And, unlike Tony Gonzalez, who I'm pretty sure still has it, Sean Witherspoon's kind of entering an interesting season because he's coming off a 2012 season, which wasn't a bad year, but it certainly kind of paled in comparison to how great he was in 2011. And we're kind of hoping that we see a little bit more of that, 2011 guy that was one of the top linebackers in the NFL, as opposed to the 2012 who was kind of, I wouldn't say middling, but he was kind of held back by the fact that the Falcons didn't really have a lot of talent at the linebacker position around him, and he kind of had to try to cover up the mistakes of some of the other players that he played with.
I think we could see some. I think we could see some interesting sets out there as far as the personnel with the first team. You've got guys like Warlow, you've got guys like Bartu, who really could come in and just take snaps. And there really isn't a drop-off from Nicholas to Bartu, from what I've seen. So that, again, goes to first cuts coming up. I mean, we could be seeing the last of Stephen Nicholas with the Falcons.
It certainly is a possibility.
First cuts are a week from today.
Yep. And the Falcons have to get, 14, 15 guys down?
14 guys. 14.
Yeah.
So if you had to pick, out of the guys that are on the roster now, if you had to pick a certain group of guys to be that, who would you pick? Like, who would be your top 10 guys that you think are going to get cut right now?
Seth Dagey, he's gone. The two tight ends, Clarity and Beer, whatever his name is. Let's see. Probably the two defensive ends. I'm probably going to stick with a lot of undrafted guys. Cam Henderson and Brandon Thurman. Jordan Maben. Troy Sanders. Probably Matt Smith. Jeff Nady. Am I up to 10? I think I'm at like 8 or 9. So, Theo Goings, maybe. Yeah. Is that 10? I don't know. Close enough.
Yeah, so you got your basic guys, the guys who aren't getting any snaps right now.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's pretty much how I see it too.
You know, they'll probably throw in some surprise guy. We're like, oh, I didn't see that coming. But yeah, those are the guys I'm looking at.
You mean they might throw in someone like Taron Jones?
Perhaps.
Where he's seen a lot of snaps, but he's just looked horrible. I mean, don't get me wrong. Taron's a nice guy, great guy, but he just looks horrible left tackle against NFL level talent. Good kid, but just not there. His body and his body size is the only thing he has going for him. He's a mountain. He doesn't move fast. He's not super strong. He doesn't get his hands on guys well. I can see why he went undrafted. You know, he got a lot of snaps in that first preseason game, and they got nothing I got nothing in the second because he looks horrible. I mean, I feel like Theo Goins probably, if he had a legitimate shot at right guard, he would have taken it because he's got the size. He's one of those too. He's got the size. If he's not getting the snaps, it's because he sucks.
Yeah.
I mean, even again, these guys aren't gods, but when Pro Football Focus doesn't even give a guy a good grade, or doesn't even see the guy in the field, you know, he was on the field for 11 snaps total. Matt Smith was on the field for 11 snaps total. Taron Jones, 20 snaps. Those guys are gone. I mean, at this point, they don't have any value except maybe playing the third or the fourth preseason game to get completely to take the hits for people that don't want it.
Yeah.
You know, I like Brian Banks. I like Nick Clancy. I think they're good guys. Nick Clancy is one of those guys that we're a big fan of his at PFC, but I mean, he's just not getting any snaps. He may make it through this round. I don't know if he will. You know, Troy Sanders, Jordan Maben, I think they're gone. Brandon Thurman, Cam Henderson, they're gone. Neil Hyun, who hasn't even had a snap, gone. I mean, if you're not getting a snap in the preseason in one of the first two games, you are a camp body. I'm sorry. It sucks. You probably deserve better, a legitimate shot somewhere, but if you can't earn your way onto the field in the first 2 games, come on now.
What's Neil's last name? I just wanted to hear you say it again. I think it's actually win, but I just like the way you say that.
It looks like you know how when you in karate you say hiya.
Yeah.
That's what it makes me think of. Like whenever I see it spelled, so I'm like hiya.
Yeah.
Hiya.
So he will henceforth be known as him.
Like Cartman. Oh man.
But yeah, I wrote something on Falcons earlier today talking about some of the guys who might get cut, listing about 20 guys, and we've pretty much been over pretty much everybody on that list that were the most vulnerable to get cut, and they were pretty much all undrafted guys. But one of the things I thought was interesting was, sometimes you hear about teams when they make that first cut down, they try to sneak a guy through waivers so that they can put him on the practice squad, later on after the second cut down. And the Falcons, at least from my research, have only done that once. And that was last year when they cut Chase Kaufman. And he did, he was part of that 75-man cut down. And then he did wind up being on the practice squad. So it'll be interesting, I don't know, Scott, if you have any possible candidates for that. But, one player that kind of sticks out to me that might be a candidate for that is someone like Brian Banks, who hasn't gotten a lot of snaps in the preseason, but I think the Falcons might want to stick him on the practice squad and see where he goes.
As much as I want to agree with that, I do like Brian Banks I like Brian Banks. I don't know if they see practice squad for him. I don't know if he's going to be with the team past preseason. I think they're going to keep him on the roster all 4 games and just let him take some hits. Why not? I think they might try to do it to Pat Schiller. And I like Schiller, but I think they might try to do that to him. Because Bartu and Warlow have outplayed him this offseason. It's just the truth. I think Pat Schiller is one of the better players out there. But I don't think that he's on the 53-man this year. I think next year you'll see Weatherspoon, Dent, and Warlow, or Weatherspoon, Dent, and Bartu as your starting linebacking combination. You could even see Weatherspoon, Warlow, and Bartu, or Weatherspoon, Warlow, and Schiller. It wouldn't shock me. I just don't see Brian Banks making the roster long term as anything outside of maybe a backup thumper.
That's fair.
Which, as we were saying the other day, just needs to be put as bumper sticker. Or maybe that was the Falcoholic, but we were like, man, that's got a great ring to it. Backup thumper.
Yeah.
But no, that's what Akeem Dent should be. That Mike Peterson role. That backup middle linebacker. Plays a bunch of special teams. And that's about it.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Dolphins cut Richard Marshall.
Interesting.
If Atlanta still needed a corner, I'd say go get him. But
yeah, he's been a good nickel corner when he's played, but that's not really a priority for the Falcons right now, thanks to friend of the show, Bobby McLean. So
I've got even if Bobby McLean played on the outside, I feel like Trufant, I feel like Alford could both play nickel very well too. I feel like the only one of the top 4 corners who would have a hard time playing nickel is Asante. Because it's not his game.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
honestly, if I wouldn't be against the Falcons, picking up Richard Marshall to be the 5th cornerback if, he's willing to play special teams.
Yeah, willing to play special teams, taking a nice, veteran minimum salary, of course. You stack them just stack them on the roster. But
that'd be an upgrade, at least, I would think. I'd rather have him than Dominic Franks.
I'd rather have Dominic Franks. At least you know what you're getting. They're both. I mean, honestly, I'd rather have neither on the roster. Go with 4 corners. If you need to sign one, bring one in. Go with 6 safeties instead.
Did Marshall play safety for Arizona? Didn't he play safety?
Free safety for Arizona.
Okay.
But I like what I'm seeing out of Kamal Ishmael and Zeke Mata. You know, yeah, Ishmael got burned. Yeah, he's a rookie. Okay, he's a rookie 7th round pick. He's going to get burnt in the preseason. He was a 7th round pick. He was not a 1st round pick. He's a rookie. And he plays safety. He's going to get burnt.
And coverage was not his forte while he was at Central Florida.
No. And he's working on it. And he improved from game 1 to game 2.
I would agree.
But his special teams, lovely. Lovely. I love what I see from him on special teams. Same with Zeke Mata. Love what I see from him on special teams. Zeke Mata is a younger version of Sean Schillinger with better coverage skills and actual safety ability.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, he can actually play the safety position. And by coverage skills, I mean, like, special teams coverage, like going down the field. He is better than Sean Schillinger was. As a gunner, he is a better gunner than Sean Schillinger.
Yeah.
And he can play safety. Holy cow. And then Charles Mitchell just looks like a man possessed out there. He looks like a legitimate player this year.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing, he's one of those guys I'm keeping my eyes on because he seems like he's the first line of defense for the, I hate to say it, but the inevitable William Moore injury. So
he should be at least as good as Chris Hope was last year, but faster to the ball. Can't really complain about that.
Mm-hmm.
You know? The team looks faster, quite a bit faster this year. Defensive end. Malachi Goodman looks like a faster, interested version of Ray Edwards.
Okay, I like that comparison.
You know what I mean? Like, interested. Like, he's actually interested in playing football. He's actually interested in being in the NFL, and he actually wants to make plays. He actually wants to get after the quarterback. He actually wants to... I mean, there was one play where it was a play action, and he had it snuffed out from the beginning. It was a play action rollout, and he was like, nah, man, I'm following the quarterback. I've seen this play too many times. Followed the quarterback on the rollout and was almost got a sack just by knowing what play it was.
Yep, exactly. I'm looking forward to what Goodman does this year. I think the Falcons are kind of counting on him for a big role, maybe not in 2013, but certainly in 2014 with all the roster shakeup that they potentially could have at D-tackle. I think they're potentially might be counting on him for one of those starting DE spots when they make the possible shift to a 3-4.
I don't think they're ever going to make a full shift to the 3-4, but...
I wouldn't say it's going to be a full-time thing, but we have been seeing a lot more 3-4 in the preseason.
We have... I do think that a base set where it's Babineau, Peters, Goodman, and Umenioria with Bierman, Weatherspoon, and Dent out there is the best, most flexible set because you can line up in a 4-3, or you can drop Croy off the ball, or you can drop OC off the ball and automatically have a 3-4. right at the snap and just confuse the offense completely. They're keying on a 4-3. You stand the guy up, back him up 5 steps right at the snap. Holy crap, you got a 3-4. They don't know what play their offensive line loses their cues. They lose it which way that they want. The offensive line, unless they call like a zone blocking style play, they're going to have a hard time run blocking the confusion. They're going to have guys running into each other, which isn't going to help. Or in the pass protection, there is no zone pass protection. You just protect your spot. But in the pass protection, it gives you the ability to run more stunts, more blitzes, and confuse the defense confuse the offensive line even more and get way more pressure. And Goodman is out there he's a bull rush machine, which is all they were hoping Ray Edwards to be. And he finally learned another. Again, he's what Ray Edwards was supposed to be with about 20 extra pounds.
Yeah.
He's got more seat in his pants.
Yeah, that's one way to put it. I like that. It's going to be interesting to see the Falcons' D-line rotation because of the potential shakeup they could have next offseason. And, I'm looking forward to seeing Johnny Massaquoi getting some snaps, working into the rotation, and maybe being a situational pass rusher this year. Being the guy that they thought Sidbury was going to be.
In 28 pass rush snaps, he has 1 sack, 1 hit, and 3 hurries. And he's actually had another hurry that Pro Football Focus didn't count, that I personally counted, because he blew up the left tackle and the quarterback threw a quick hit. And had he not thrown the quick hit and had to go to a second progression, was going to get demolished because he beat that left tackle and he was almost had his hand on him. And I asked the guy who graded the game. He was like, "No, that's not a hurry." I'm like, "That's completely a hurry. He just lucked out." But no, he's got a sack, a hit, a couple plays where he's just blown up left tackles and just made them look sad. Where OC was on the right side. Or facing the right tackle too. So it's not like OC wasn't on the field. It was Massaquoi and OC going after it. But I'm excited to see this year's pass rush. I think it's going to be productive. I think it's going to be a lot better at collapsing the pocket from the inside. And I've seen some good things from Corey Peters. You could tell he's got a little bit more seat in his pants this year too, because his run defense, he's taken on a double team pretty much every play that he's in. Whether it's pass rush, run defense, anything. He's taken on 2 guys right in the middle of the field.
Exactly. He's playing that, when the Falcons are using those 3-4 looks, he's playing that nose spot. And I think you and I, Scott, talked earlier on some previous episodes about how we agree that Corey Peters may not be the classic, 330-pound, 6'1", run-plugging, space-eating nose tackle, but he certainly has the skill set to play that role the way that Mike Nolan wants in this hybrid defense.
I mean, I agree with you. But that's because Nolan runs a one-gap defense. So Peter shoots that gap and boom, the center and the guard are taken care of. All you have to worry about is, and that's why Babineau has been so much more productive, because Babineau is facing single teams. Everybody this year is like, "Oh my God, what happened to Babineau? He's a man possessed. He's out there killing it." It's because he's only going against one guy now. They're keying on Corey Peters. They're not keying on Jonathan Babineau. So Babs is in opposing teams' backfields making plays, while Peters is taking on 2 guys at the line. He's doing what Justin Smith used to do, or what Justin Smith did last year, and basically just holding 2 guys at the line and letting him kick his ass for a minute so that somebody else can make the play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If he gets negative grades all year because of that, he shouldn't care. Because the defense as a whole is going to be better for his personal, quote-unquote, personal sacrifice. And then the team will come back next year and give him a 5-year contract for $25 million, and all will be right in the world because he's making 5 times what he used to just to do the exact same role. And they've got the space to do it.
Yeah. Justin Smith is a black hole on that 49ers defensive line, just sucking in blockers that allows, Willis and Bowman to be even better. And if Peters can be that type of dude, then, Weatherspoon, I think, is going to be poised to have a big season because he can be the same role player. He could have the same role in the Falcons front, Peters I'm talking about, that Smith does by keeping guys clean, because that was an issue last year with the Falcons front. They just couldn't keep those linebackers clean, and a lot of those big runs that the Falcons gave up throughout the year were, offensive linemen just teeing off on linebackers, and you have a 310, 315-pound offensive lineman going up against a 240-pound linebacker. It's a no-win situation for even the best linebackers in the league.
Exactly. And when you've got a guy like Corey Peters playing the way and the whole thing is he was injured last year. Mm-hmm. And that's why he wasn't able to actually play that role. I feel like the first team defense is way better this year because he can play that, just beast in the middle role. Everybody else around him is playing better. The line looks like it's getting more pass rush. I mean, don't get me wrong, the pass rush still isn't great, but it's way better than it was last year. And the coverage is better than it was last year.
Yeah, well, we got rid of Dante Robinson, so it couldn't help but get better.
Dude, I could cover better than Dante Robinson did last year. I'd at least own it when I got burned, like, hey, dude, that was my fault. He would just be like, man, I got burned again. Just like, damn. Look all defeated. I'm not a fan of Dante Robinson. All concussion.
Football fans, check out ProFootballCentral.com for all the latest NFL news and analysis. Also, check out the very popular Pro Football Central Radio Network for awesome NFL talk around the league. Go to ProFootballCentral.com. ProFootballCentral.com.
Football fans, check out the official T-shirt apparel shop for the Pro Football Central Radio Network. Check out BigFrog.com/Cincinnati. That's BigFrog.com/Cincinnati. You think it, we ink it. They have an awesome 24-hour turnaround time. You can also visit them at their fabulous store over at Anderson Town Center, 7426 Beachmont Avenue, Cincinnati, Ohio 45255. That's BigFrog.com/Cincinnati.
Hi, welcome back to Falcons Central Radio. We are joined by our illustrious guest, Matt Rittle. He's a writer for RotoViz.com and LateRoundQB.com. How you doing, Matt?
Good. How about you?
Doing pretty well. A lot better than Scott, who's seemingly has a cold or something. But
no, it's a sinus infection. It's a sinus infection. I get one every year. It's in the fall.
Oh, I hate sinus infections. I'm not a big doctor guy, but the minute I feel a sinus infection, I'll be in the doctor's office. Because then you get the ear infection, and I'll just have both for months if I don't take care of it.
I haven't had a sinus infection, or I have, but I haven't been to a doctor for one in about 4 years. Because I'm like, I'm just gonna fight through it. I'll be fine. Nah, not this one. I'm probably going to see a doctor tomorrow. It's not going to be fun.
I recommend it for the sinus infections.
Yeah, I need it. Now, going away from medical advice.
Okay.
This year's offense for the Falcons, just going to jump right in it. You're the fantasy football guy. I'm not really huge into fantasy football, so I'm trying to get as much advice so I can actually win a league this year. I was in 10 last year. I only got second in one, and then I was like ninth in the other 8, 9, and then I was like 11th in my 12-team league, but I don't want to talk about it.
You're not even competitive, it sounds like.
No, I'm not. I'm awful. And I like check the waiver wire every week. I'm like trying to be good at it, and I'm just bad. Like, awful. The one team that got second, I was like, this is my miracle team.
Right.
Like, everybody was healthy. It wasn't like Larry Fitzgerald on it. Because one team I drafted Larry Fitzgerald in the second round. I was like, man, this is a steal. And then I'm like, oh, man, no wonder he was available. He only got 800 yards.
Yeah, that was a disappointing year for many people last year. I'm sure most of which Fitzgerald, just knowing his competitiveness.
So, yes, let's go into it. Atlanta players, who do you think is going to be worth the most that you can get at the lowest round possible?
Worth the most that you can get the lowest round possible.
Yes, your best value guy.
Yeah. So, I mean, mainly, depending on how deep your league is, and I say that just because I've done some 16-team, 22-round drafts, and I have some friends who have done some 55-round drafts, and so, I mean, everyone has a price. For most people, you're going to be in I think 12-team leagues are kind of the wave right now, and some people are still doing 10 teams, and they'll do, 16 or maybe 20 rounds. So for most people, the only Falcons being drafted are possibly the kicker, which is, whatever, and the defense, again, which is kind of whatever for our purposes. So, I mean, you're looking at Roddy and Julio, obviously, and Steven Jackson and Matt Ryan. Tony Gonzalez, and I'm not a big Quiz Rogers fan this year, so I'll ignore him. Out of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people, so the 2 receivers, the tight end, Steven Jackson and Matt Ryan. So is that 5, or did I miscount?
No, that's
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 5. Out of those 5, the guy you get the latest is Matt Ryan, who I like this year for fantasy purposes. My only issue with Matt Ryan is, I don't expect him to finish as a top 3 quarterback. You're kind of buying a high floor, limited upside guy, which is fine. That he's great. I have him on several teams, and I'm happy with it. But he's closely ranked for me to several other quarterbacks. So I'm not going to reach for him. If he happens to be, if it's the 7th, for me personally, if it's, say, the 7th round, and Stafford's gone, and RG3's gone, and Kaepernick are gone, and okay, then I'll probably take Matt Ryan if he's there. But, if it's the 6th round and 4 or 5 of those guys are there, I'll just wait around and take whichever one fell because they're all pretty closely ranked for me. So the funny thing about, to answer your question, Matt Ryan aside now, is we're saying who's the guy I can take the latest worth the most. Okay, well, these are all guys going in the first 4 or 5, 6 rounds sometimes with Tony Gonzalez. I'll say Roddy White as kind of a surprise pick. I think a lot of people are kind of sleeping on him. I'd rather own Julio outright this year, but you can get Roddy White a round later. And so I don't think he's that much less valuable than Julio. So in terms of best return on where you draft him out of any Falcon this year, I'm going to go Roddy White.
Okay. Now, I guess there's been a lot of debate about Steven Jackson and how good, or some debate on how good Steven Jackson's going to be in the Falcons uniform this year. He's 30 years old. He's coming off a couple of okay seasons in St. Louis. The Falcons transitioned to a more passing first attack last year. And so I guess a lot of people suspect, Steven Jackson probably in that 1,000, 1,100 yard range. Do you think there's any possibility that we could see a resurgence of Steven Jackson in terms of his production this year, kind of similar to how Corey Dillon was when he left Cincinnati and went to New England, and I think he had like a 1,600 yard season?
Yeah, when you say resurgence, you're referring to can you get a 1,500 yard season out of him, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. That's the hope. I mean, the Steven Jackson Kool-Aid drinkers are hoping to get 1,500 yards, and basically for the Kool-Aid drinkers, if they don't get 2006 Steven Jackson at this point, they're going to be disappointed. It's possible, yes. I don't think that that's the most likely scenario. But a common mistake we make in fantasy is we assume that you have to be, especially at running back more so than any other position, we assume that you have to be a great running back to be a good fantasy option, and you don't. In terms of on-the-field value, just talent as a player, and I'm not dissing his career, but Michael Turner was not great last year on the field. He just was not a phenomenal NFL running back in most terms. That said, he finished the season. He played every game. He finished the season as, I think it was the 17th ranked running back, in large part because of the red zone work and the touchdowns. Steven Jackson's actually been surprisingly good inside the 5 and 10 yard line in his career. So if he can catch some passes and still have some legs to run with and stay healthy, I think you could see better than you saw with Michael Turner last year for sure. I think over 1,000. I think that 1,000, 1,100 is pretty realistic. You add some catches, you add some touchdowns, and you have a pretty nice running back there, both for the Falcons and in fantasy.
So here's my question, because Michael Turner had either 10 or 11 touchdowns last year, and then he had 1 catching. But Michael Turner's not known for his receiving skills. Michael Turner's not going to force linebackers to sit back and say, hey, this guy can also catch the ball and make us look stupid. I've got Steven Jackson projected at that 1,100 yards rushing, but I think he could hit 18, 20 touchdowns this year, despite not having over 1,400 combined yards, just based on his red zone work. Is that too high, do you think, or am I just being a homer?
I would say that's a homer projection, yes. Is that projection possible? Yeah, honestly, that projection is possible. I think that's wishful thinking more than the most likely result. To say he'll get 50% more touchdowns than Turner did last year just because he's Steven Jackson and it's on the Falcons, that's just not the most likely result. I think of a lot of results in terms of like a bell curve. So we draw a bell curve, and these are the possible results. And the problem with, the problem with fantasy analysts, or perhaps it's the fans, they kind of pigeonhole you into a stat line. They say, what do you think he'll do? Or where do you rank him? And really it's kind of a series of likelihoods. But, people don't want to hear, well, he's 20% likely to score at least 8 touchdowns. He's 10% of the time he'll score 16. They don't want to hear all that. I think the most likely scenario is kind of, I don't actually do actual projections, but I'd say probably the 9 to 14 area seems to be the most likely for me. I would not be shocked if he did more than that, but I think it's tough to predict anyone to do, what did you say, 16 to 18?
So I said 18 to 20.
18 to 20. I can't think of a running back in the league that I would project to score 18 to 20. I mean, if Foster were 100% healthy, I don't think I could project him for 20 touchdowns. I wouldn't be surprised if it happened. You know what I'm saying? But I couldn't project it.
I was just saying combined, based on his red zone work, based on Michael Turner could have had 15 touchdowns last year if he could just punch it in. I think there were 8 or 9 times where Matt Bryant had a field goal for about 32 to 35 yards that should have just been a 5-yard touchdown for a running back. But because
I'd have to run all the stats on that, but no running back's going to hit it in every time. The best running back in the league is never 100% conversion.
I was just taking half of those.
Yeah.
I wasn't taking. I was saying half of those plus a couple receiving touchdowns that Michael Turner's not going to get. Because he's good.
You're justifiable in your projection. It's not such a homer projection that you're going to get laughed at for that. I just don't think that's the most likely scenario for him. Is all.
Makes sense.
To bring this back to a fantasy spin, here's the other problem. If you start kind of using some of the logic you're using and you start projecting him at, 20 touchdowns, that's a top 5 pick you're projecting.
Well, I'm saying
so now, so the issue in fantasy isn't just, I think this guy will be good this year. You have to kind of compare him to everyone else around him. I would not be able to take him ahead of any of the top 5 running backs, which right there means either those guys' projections have to be higher than what you're saying, or perhaps I have Steven Jackson projected too high. So you kind of have to do some of this sorting out. Where did I end up on Steven Jackson? In my big board, I think he ended up as kind of a mid to early second-round pick. I don't remember exactly where. About 14 or 15 overall is kind of where I ended up ranking him. That's with a couple wide receivers in front of him, too. So I think I have him at, running back. I don't have it in front of me, but probably about running back 12 or 13.
That sounds about right. Take him there. I'm saying you can take him there and get value out of him because people aren't going to expect much out of him this year. They're not going to expect ridiculous, 2,000-yard, 30 touchdown Steven Jackson from 2006.
Yeah.
They'll look for Steven Jackson from last year, which was 1,000 yards, 300 receiving, 10 total touchdowns? I think he's going to be better than that.
Part of the thing you want to do with fantasy is you want to buy players not at the peak of their upside. Is it theoretically possible that Steven Jackson has a career resurgence and we see 2006 again? I mean, it hasn't looked like it in the preseason, but sometimes, as maybe the more he moves, he'll feel better and learn the offense better. And yeah, that's theoretically possible. The problem is if you take him with your 5th or 6th overall pick, he has to do that for you to have gotten value on that pick. Anything less than that means you didn't get the right value. So what I'm saying, when you take him in, let's say, the middle of the second or even towards the early of the second, he can have, say 1,100 yards and 10 touchdowns, and that's you got value right there, and there's still upside to that.
I've been getting him in the 3rd. I've been getting him in the 4th. There was one draft where I went just straight Falcons. Yeah, recently. I got Julio Jones in the 1st. I got Matt Ryan in the 2nd. I got Roddy White in the 3rd. I got Tony Gonzalez in the 4th, and I got Steven Jackson in the 5th.
I think I just figured out your problem in the fantasy league.
I mean, no, that's the thing. Each one, I was like, all right, well, hold on. I didn't realize what I did until after I did it, and I was like, wow, I just straight up picked 5 Falcons.
And it took you to the 5th one to realize it.
The thing is, one of my buddies was like, dude, you've got a great team going right now. I'm like, I know, it's looking good. And then after I stepped back, I was like, I just picked 5 Falcons in a row. In a competitive money league that I'm playing with friends.
How did you not realize that?
I don't see the issue with it, though. What if they all do well?
Well, you're going to lose the bye week, I'll tell you that much.
I mean,
that's actually not so bad to take one loss. Here's the issue with that. I personally do not mind having multiple players on a team. My thing in general is to kind of take the best player available. If it comes up and your best player available is Roddy White, I wouldn't necessarily pass on him just because you have Julio Jones already. So that's kind of my mindset in general. But I think 2 players is not a big deal. Once you add that 3rd player, that's a big buy-in to a team to have 3 players from a team, and you have 5. The problem is it's a bad week. And as a homer, this is one of those things that, this could be the best year of your life. If the Falcons have this awesome offense and your team blows up and you're winning your league and you're winning money and your team's winning on the field too, that's sort of the best year of your life. But then the week that they play a tough defense or have an off game and your 5 Falcons put up 20 combined points, you don't have any teams and other players to kind of even that out a little bit.
Well, I mean, to be fair, you start 4 wide receivers in this league. You start 2 running backs. You start 2 quarterbacks, and you start 2 tight ends. So I might be able to afford some hit. A little bit of
Since we're talking fantasy, if I remember the order you said those, Julio was being overdrafted in redrafts, so you probably took him over receivers you shouldn't have. Matt Ryan in the set. Did you see Matt Ryan in the third? I don't take a quarterback till the fifth or seventh or eighth. Steven Jackson and Roddy White were great, but so there was a couple of reaches there probably for me.
This is a 12-team league, and I had the last pick in the first, and the first pick in the second, like the snake order. But I had the last pick in the first.
Yeah, the last pick in the first, and you took who did you take at the first turn there?
I took Julio and Matt, and then I took.
That was a round too early for Julio, and like 5 rounds too early for Matt Ryan.
You're my BPA. Man, this is why I'm bad at fantasy football.
Was that the first quarterback off the board?
No, he was like the 5th quarterback off the board, and it was like the 6th receiver off the board.
I like Julio as wide receiver 6, but you should take a running back at that point. You said it's a 2 running back league?
It's a 2 running back league that you start, but there's no PPR. So running backs are really devalued. Unless they've got receiving ability. Like really.
And it's a 4 receiver still.
And it's a
I would still, I don't mind, okay, in that format, I don't mind Julio there as wide receiver 6, but I would still take a running back. I mean, you can still get, what did you say, 5 quarterbacks? I mean, you can still get a elite running back at that point.
I mean, again, this is probably why I lose, and while I'll lose that league at least. But, hey, if Atlanta wins a lot this year, it could be better.
This is what I said. The problem with drafting that many from one team is that variance is really going to bite you in the butt. The problem with drafting that many people from your favorite team is that it's, this is going to be like the happiest year of your entire life, or like just there's going to be no remedy for your depression. You know, those are the 2 outcomes for your emotions this year.
Pretty much. So let's hope Matt Ryan doesn't go down, because it kind of hinges on.
All right, Matt, we're going to get you out on this question. Speaking of Julio Jones, can he have a Calvin Johnson-like season where, you look at what he did in the NFC Championship game where he just was a one-man wrecking crew for that 49ers secondary? Can he do that? We probably can't do that every week, but can he have that sort of stat line most weeks and put up, some monster numbers this year? Given that
theoretically,
Roddy White.
Go ahead. Given that Roddy White is getting older,
or just saying that even though Roddy White and Tony Gonzalez still take a lot of targets and catches.
Yeah, I don't think there's enough targets to support Julio Jones blowing up every single week. So I just think there's a target distribution problem there for him to be quote unquote Calvin Johnson. I think in 2-3 years as Roddy begins to decline a little, I think he takes care of himself. He's never had a major injury, so he'll be around for a while. But next year you'll lose Tony Gonzalez. You may not even have Steven Jackson next year. He's already 30, and he catches a lot of passes. So I think over the next couple of years you'll see more and more targets going his way and some more, I don't want to say consistency per se, but we'll just say consistency from Julio. It's mostly a target issue. Matt Ryan is most efficient when he's throwing to Julio. He's a physical beast. He hasn't been in the league that long, but he's made great strides what he has already. And I love when these young guys with good work ethics get around veterans who can, like Roddy White and Tony Gonzalez. He's learning the right way to do stuff, not just on the field, but off the field as well. So, yeah, I love Julio Jones, but I think there's too many. It's kind of a Miami Heat problem. Not enough balls to go around.
So basically, I'm counting on him to put up monster numbers. He needs to basically break like an 80-yard touchdown every game, pretty much. Which is possible, I guess.
Yeah, if you remember Jordy Nelson's breakout year, that's kind of how he did it. Was there were games when he only had, I remember because I owned him that year in one of my leagues. I remember there was a couple different games where he had 1 target for 1 catch, but it would be like an 80-yard touchdown. or maybe he'd have 2 targets for 1 catch and a 60-yard gainer. And so that's what you have to do to stave off. I mean, Julio will see more consistent targets than that, but if he's not consistently breaking the long ones on his quote-unquote off-target weeks where he's not the main focus, then, yeah, that's what he'd have to do.
Okay. Well, Matt, where can people find you on Twitter and also elsewhere on the interwebs?
Sure. Mainly on Twitter. That's where I kind of spend my bored time and talk a heck of a lot of fantasy football and life at FF Rittle, RITTLE. So there you go. I do some writing for RotoViz. I do what I can for LateRoundQB.com, and I do some customer service work with 4for4, which I'm a big fan of them as well. So hit me up on Twitter, and I'm always open to chat. And really just draft Matt Ryan later. That's my biggest advice here.
We'll make sure to update you on Scott's fantasy season and see how it goes for him.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Cigar fans, check out fifthdowncigar.com and enter the coupon code PFC to get 10% off your order. Lots of nice high-end cigars. That's fifthdowncigar.com. Enter the code PFC for 10% off your order.
So
all right.
That was Matt Rittle, our one of the fantasy football experts that are out there. As you could tell, I need a little bit of help there.
Yeah, I enjoyed that.
Let's just rip on Scott for 15 minutes about his poor fantasy choices. All right. You know
what? It makes me feel a whole lot better about my fantasy choices. So
that's why I'm here, people. I'm not a fantasy football guy. Everybody hits me up for fantasy advice. I always give them what I think is the worst advice because it ends up working out for them.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to start just doing the things that I think are counterintuitive because they probably will end up working out for me because I'm the same way.
One guy was like, who should I draft? Doug Martin or, what was it? Doug Martin or Adrian Peterson? I'm like, dude, go Doug Martin. But Adrian Peterson's a better back. But Doug Martin's just better, dude. Just go with Doug Martin. All right. He went with Doug Martin. Maybe it'll work for him. I doubt it, though.
All right. Well, we'll be back next week. I'm sure we'll be talking about the big Titans game and how awesome Tony Gonzalez looked, with his 7 catches for 89 yards. And,
let's talk about the cuts. The first cuts. My favorite are always the first because it's like these are the 15 guys that just don't belong. As much as I hate seeing guys lose their job, it's like we finally get a better picture of who's going to be the Falcons.
All right. Well, you can find Scott and I on Twitter. I'm at FalcFans. Scott's at Scott Carasik. You can tweet the show at FalconsPFC. And that's it.
This has been a presentation of the Pro Football Central Network. For news, blogs, highlights, and more, log on to ProFootballCentral.com.